All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get things started. So here we are at the home page, of course. You should have received your iConnect Data login credentials if you did not already have some set up from perhaps previous accounts. A little bit, you should have received that email before you received your quality approval email. So let me go ahead and get logged in. Now, from here, if this is your first time in, you're going to have to select from a pool of images, and then you can customize an image caption to go along with it. Main purpose behind this is it's an additional level of fraudulent protection. So just in case, if for any reason you don't see your familiar image or the image caption, if there's some sort of mismatch or you don't see any, chances are you could either have just typed in your user ID incorrectly, or worst case scenario, you're on the wrong website. So that would definitely be a no-go. So if you keep backing out and trying again. If it's being consistent, then you may be on the wrong website. And if you think you're in that situation, definitely reach out to your Comdata rep right away so we can get you squared away. All right, and from here, again, if this is your first time, you're gonna have to set up 3 security questions. Highly recommend picking the most memorable ones because, as you can see, we have to answer at least one every time we log in. All right, now here we are at the home page. So I'm going to go over some of the features that you see here. Starting here in the center left over here, we'll have the Comdata News and ICD updates. So between these two tabs, this is going to show you any upcoming banking holidays, any planned or unplanned downtime, um, and any product updates should show up between these two tabs. The third tab is only going to be available for our Tier 1 users. So this is in reference to when you were setting up your accounts originally, you essentially have 3 tiers that you can set up authorized users to be at. For anybody who is Tier 1, so full administrative rights, will have access to the credit summary. 2 and 3 will not have this. All right, so once you click on the credit summary, the way this system works is essentially you will type in your Comdata account code, which is generally 2 letters followed by 3 numbers. And then you would hit that retrieve balances, and then this information will populate for you. So from here, you'd be able to see the current credit limit. If you were over by anything, you'd see anything that's still in a pre-authorized status, your current account balance, last deposit, all sorts of other good stuff. And if you have any questions over what you see here, you can always hover over the little question mark there, and it'll give you a quick snippet as what's going on. All right, next you'll have over here to the right for the quick links. So these are especially helpful once you've gotten a little bit more familiar with the website and you want to save yourself some time. If you have certain features that you're using on a daily basis, hey, you want to make it a little bit easier so you're 1 click away as opposed to 3 or 4 clicks. So in order to edit this, all you have to do is come over here to the right to the select my quick links. Once you click on that, this is going to bring up your new box here. Quick note, you can have up to 15 of these saved on your home page there. And the way they have this organized is essentially you're going to have your various activities in the left-hand column, which will be different features found in the Manage tab. And then the reports over here to the right will be in the right-hand column. And these will be various reports found in the Reporting Report queue. Now, keep in mind, not every feature under the Manage tab is available as a quick link, and not every report is available as a quick link. But there's many popular reports that we have made quick links, so feel free to comb through this once you've gotten a little bit more familiar with the website and you want to find those options. So once you find the option you want to add, all you have to do is simply select or deselect on the little check boxes there, hit submit, and then it'll update your home page for you. All right, so the next thing we're going to go over is in the top right-hand corner. Here you're going to see your user ID. And right next to that, you're going to see a drop-down arrow. So once I click on that arrow, we're going to see shortcuts to reset the image key, reset our security questions, and we can also dive into our personal profile. So that's what we're going to go ahead and do now. And from the profile here, you can see essentially all we'll really have for you is your first and last name, and then you're going to have your email address and phone number. And that's especially important to make sure you keep that email address up to date. So if it changes, please be sure to update it here on the website, and this is where you'll want to go to do so, because this will drive a handful of automated emails, and probably most importantly would be your password reset. So definitely keep that up to date. A little bit further down here, you'll see the ability to update your password and security questions. And here are the other aforementioned email notifications. So to go over these, the first one is the early notification reports. So what this one will do is if you have a line of credit with us, as a not pre-funded account. So again, those are the credit limit. If you ever reach 80% of that credit limit, if you have this selected, this will send you an email just simply letting you know, hey, you've reached 80% of your credit limit. Please be advised. And then if you ever do get that message, you can pop back onto the website, go to that home page and that credit summary tab that I showed you, and then pull up your information. And then from there, you'll be able to make the determination of, all right, I think we can make it to the next cycle reset, or nope, we better make some sort of early payment. The next thing you'll have will be the invoice reports. So what this report will do is essentially just going to send you a reminder, just letting you know, hey, your invoice has been generated on the website. Please log on to the website to retrieve it. This will not send you the invoice directly. Again, it's just a reminder. So you will need to come onto the website to retrieve that invoice. And I will show you how to do that later on in today's training. All right, now once you decide you do or do not want any of these options, you can simply select or deselect, hit submit, and then you'll be good to go. All right, so from here, there is one more feature I'm going to go over, and this is another tool for our top tier administrators. So let's say you have hired on a new employee and they're now going to be in charge of managing your cards. So the next thing I want to show you is where to go to get that new employee a user ID that's either similar in access to yours or somebody else's in your company to get this person up and running on the website. So in order to do so, we're going to go down to this drop-down box, then go down to user administration. This might be taking just a little bit. All right, just a moment, bear with me here while it loads up. All right, here we are. So the way this system works is this will copy an existing user and then mirror all of the privileges that they had onto the new user ID. So for example, every account code that person A had access to, every report, every feature would be mirrored onto the new user ID. So all you have to do is simply type in the existing ID that needs to be copied from, type in a new user ID for your new user. If you haven't noticed yet, essentially your user IDs, we have a particular naming schema we stick with, which is generally your account code followed by your first and last initial. By no means do you have to stick with that, but we do recommend, it's what we usually use, so that's just our at least recommendation for you. A little bit further down, you're also going to have the first and last name and email address information, pretty standard. Then you're going to have this little call-in button. And then if you click on that, then you're going to have a new field show up called a code word. So the main purpose behind this code word system is if you want this individual to be able to call into the call center, perhaps maybe it's after hours from your full-time account manager, or maybe the call center and the support team are going to be your long-term support. So either way, if you want this person to be able to call in and receive any assistance on your account, they would need to have a code word system in place, and they of course need to remember their code word when they call in, because if they're not able to provide it, or if they're not in the system, the call center will turn them away. And the main reason they keep they're very adamant about that, because this is essentially their last line of defense to protect your account against unauthorized access. So the code word system prevents somebody from simply having your name and Comdata account code and spending all of your money or doing irreparable damage to your account. So we definitely treat that very seriously. So all you have to do to get this code word set up, it can be any combination of numbers or letters, just no special characters, and they do have to be unique within the account. So you can't have everybody with the exact same code word. Another quick note as well, if you were to send this request to Comdata, if you needed a new user ID, we would also need all 4 of these lines as well if we're going to get this person set up. So just as a heads up on that. So once you get everything filled out, you click on that create user. It's going to be about a minute or so for that to load up. And then once you get the confirmation, your new user should receive an email, and then they'll get logged in just like you did. All right, so now let's say we're on the flip side of things, and we've hired on a new person, but maybe somebody else has left the company, and clearly they don't need to have access to your cards anymore. So if we need to delete a user, all we have to do is click on the delete user over here to the left, type in that user ID that needs to be deleted, click delete, and then they'll be taken care of. They'll no longer have access to your cards. All right, and that will conclude the home page. So before I move on to the real bulk of today's training, I'm going to take a quick moment to see if I have any questions. Okay, it does not look like I have any questions. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next section, which will be various features found in the Manage tab over here in the top left-hand corner. And the first thing I'm going to show you is how to order a card, whether it is physical or ghost. So in order to do so, we're going to go ahead and click on Manage. We're going to go down to Cards. Now you've probably noticed I've skipped over two features here, New Card Order and Card Maintenance. Unfortunately, while these are newer features, they still have a lot of kinks they haven't quite ironed out yet. So I always direct my customers to what we call the classic card maintenance information here. So we're going to go to Manage. We're going to go to Cards. And from here, we're going to go down to near the bottom of this option to the left where we're going to see Order Cards. So once I click on that, this is going to refresh the page here. And from here, don't be alarmed when it says card maintenance up there. Once we select our customer ID, if you have multiples, otherwise this would just show as it would just take you to this next page here. Excuse me. So once I click on this, this page is going to refresh, and now we'll be able to select that purchasing profile and if this is going to be a physical card or a ghost card. So as I mentioned, this is essentially the first difference between the physical and ghost cards. So if you wanted a physical, you would, of course, leave that punch card option selected. If you want ghost, you would select the ghost. So to start things off, I'm going to show you what it looks like to order a physical card, and even more specifically, an employee physical card. I'll go ahead and go over the difference between that and a vehicle card, and then we'll back up and I'll show you the small difference between the physical card and the ghost card. So without further ado, let's go ahead and look at the employee card and what to do to order it. So once I hit continue, this is going to take us to our next step. So this is where you fill out all the information that this card is going to need. So of course, you'll have your first and last name. Pretty much the only difference between an employee card and a vehicle card at this stage of ordering the card is essentially going to be this last name field. So as an employee card, you'll be able to type in any last name that you want. However, if it's a vehicle card, instead of this fillable field, it's going to be a drop down, kind of like this here. And then you'll be able to select between all of the allowed last names for vehicle cards, which will be, airplane, plate, unit, truck, etc. Right. And from there, you can put in an employee number, any additional reporting information that you see fit. Further down from here, you'll also see your shipping information. So to cover this real quickly, the customer ID address would have been that standard shipping address that we would have on file that is attached directly to that customer ID. If that's not going to work, you can select your account code address. So this would have been generally the billing address if it varied. Sometimes they're the same, of course. And then if neither one of those are going to work, you can always click on card address, and then you can send this in a one-off situation to anywhere you need to. All right, to double back up a little bit, so you're going to see the attention to if you want to adjust that. You're also going to see your delivery method. So we're going to cover these delivery methods here. So the first three options will not cost anything additional to use. So the first two, second day, ground, if you do worldwide expedited, that's just international shipping. However, if you do need to expedite your card internally within the United States, you can select the UPS next day air. However, this will come in as an additional cost if you do expedite your card. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this. And then once you do, the fee schedule is going to show up. And then, it'll give you a breakdown of, depending on how many cards you order within the cutoff. And that cutoff time is 10:45, excuse me, 10:45 a.m. Central Time. So be sure to place your card order before then to make sure it meets the next business day delivery options. So once you accept the fees, you would hit yes. If you decide you do not want to expedite your card, you can click no, and then it's going to default back to second day air. So be sure to keep that in mind. All right, a little bit further down from here, this feature is only going to be available for our employee cards. So if you have enrolled in our alerts and notifications program, this is where you would fill out that information for your cardholder. So you would simply click on both the email notifications and mobile alerts, then type in their mobile number and cardholder address. Once you plug all that in, hit confirm, this card is going to be begin to be processed. Your cardholder is going to receive an email letting them know to opt into the program and a text message as well. All right, so now that I've gone over this, I want to go ahead and backtrack just a little bit. We're going to go ahead and take a quick look at what it looks like to order a ghost card. So once I click on the radial here, but I'm now going to go to continue. Now from here, essentially you can see this first half from the first name to the miscellaneous information, all the same. The biggest difference is you are now missing that shipping information and shipping options. And this is, of course, because a ghost card is not going to create a physical piece of plastic. This is basically just going to be a quote unquote physical card that's going to exist on the website. So the card number will only be here on Comdata. You'll also see this information down here at the bottom, but this feature is not enabled for ghost cards, so feel free to disregard the cardholder contact info down here. And then once you plug in this information, you're going to go click on the confirmation button there. On the next screen, there won't be any additional confirmation. This is essentially your final, review of everything. And once you hit confirm, it's going to simply let you know, hey, the card's been created. And then you're also going to have an additional link for the security code button. And from there, you can click on that security code, and then you can see the expiration date and the CVC2 number. And again, that's only available for ghost cards because the card doesn't have a physical piece of plastic to have that stuff printed on. All right. So with having said that, and of course, if you miss that for any reason, you can always retrieve the CVC2 number from the card maintenance screen, which is what I'll be going over next. But before I do that, I want to go ahead and take a quick pause to see if anybody has any questions for me. Okay, we look to be in good shape, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to card maintenance. So in order to do so, again, we're going to start off from the home page. All right, we're going to go to Manage. We're going to go back to Cards. And from this option, we're going to go over here to Card Maintenance. Now, from here, you'll also see your card maintenance screen. So from here, you'll be able to double check your customer ID and account code. If you had a particular card in mind that you wanted to search for, you can filter down that information. Otherwise, if you leave everything blank and default and hit submit, this will pull up the full card listing. So that's what we're going to go ahead and do. So let's take a look at all the cards that we've ever created under this customer ID. We're going to go ahead and scroll on down here. So here you can see all the cards here. You'll have the customer ID it's under as a reminder. You'll have your employee number, name, the card number itself, the current status, and the last activity date. So that way you can see the last time it's actually been used. So to get things started, we're going to take a look at one of these cards at a little deeper detail. So you have three ways of doing that from this screen. So you can either click on the edit button, you can click on the employee number, or you can click on the card number. All three of these hyperlinks take you to the exact same spot. So we're going to take a look at John Dawson's card here. And from here, we'll be able to see all of the information that is editable after the card has been created. Another quick note too, any updates you make on this screen will be updated in real time. So from here, of course, you can see you're going to have your employee number you can adjust. You're going to have your statuses. So I'm going to go over these real quick. So you can move a card between active and block any number of times with no issues. However, if you move a card to partial block, or excuse me, stolen or suspected fraud, that will permanently block that card. And then you would have to create a new card for your user if you want them to continue spending. So my recommendation is if you are in a situation where you suspect there might be some fraudulent activity, but if you're not 100% certain, don't put the card in a fraud status. Only block it first, and then once you know for certain beyond a shadow of a doubt, then feel free to upgrade it to stolen suspected fraud, and then from there you'll need to create a new card. All right, and then from here you can adjust the purchasing profiles so long as the prompting options were the same. So, perhaps this individual was getting a promotion, now they're going to be in a new role where they're going to be spending more, or perhaps you just misgauged how much they're actually spending in their current role. You can always adjust their profile, no issue whatsoever from that. A little bit further down, you'll see your reporting information. Here you'll see the card address information, and then further down, again, you would see your reminders for your alerts notifications, what was input, or rather for this card. All right, next thing I want to go over is another feature for our physical cards, and that will be the one-time purchase. So the main purpose behind this feature is, let's say, Mr. John Dawson here, maybe he's a company driver, he's using a company car, and this company car breaks down out in the middle of nowhere, and he's quite stranded. How unfortunately you didn't have any profiles that were really going to allow such a high maintenance cost. And this is again more of a one-off situation. It's not like he's going to have to make these maintenance purchases daily or weekly or anything like that. So what we want to do for him is essentially we're going to open up his card one time for one transaction to go up to however much he needs to. So in order to do this, we're going to go to one-time purchase. And from here, you can enter that amount that you would like Tim to go up to. So let's say we know it's going to be 900 bucks and some change. Let's be safe and approve him for up to $1,000. And then once you hit submit, his card is going to move off to a one-off profile, and essentially it's going to be open to any MCC and allows up to $1,000. So this for the very next swipe, and these are some of the more key notes about this feature is that it is for the very next swipe. So let's say if you set this up in the morning, you tell them, hey, your card should be good. But if you didn't let them know it's only for the next swipe, maybe lunchtime rolls around, they go over to the McDonald's next door, they get a bite to eat. If they use that card, that's going to eat up that transaction. So again, definitely stress it to your card holder that this will only work for the very next swipe. So make sure this is the next transaction. After they make that swipe, their card is going to automatically default back to their previous profile that they were on. Another thing to note about this feature, you will want to take into consideration the current dollar day usage down at the bottom. So if this shows any value, you would want to simply add whatever you see down here to the amount at the one-time purchase override. So for example, if we see they've already spent 200 bucks and we know we want to give them 1,000, let's just up it to $1,200. The main purpose behind that is if you have any cycle limitations or any other limitations on the card, that this will help bypass that and make sure you don't run into any issues. Okie dokie. And then if anything I've gone over in here, if you'll click on the click here, this will give you a quick reminder of all those little tidbits I gave you. And one other thing too, just as again as a quick reminder, since when you do set this up, this will bypass any merchant category code restrictions. So if you run into a situation where maybe they're at a location that's at a blocked MCC, depending on how restrictive your accounts were, you could do a one-off override to get them through, and then from there, you can either reach out to Comdata to have a more permanent adjustment made to the profile, etc. All right, so now that I've gone over the physical card, now I'm going to take a look at the ghost card, and a small difference here for this. So we're just going to go ahead and look at our first ghost card here on file. And from here, you'll see essentially this top half, all of the exact same. Probably the biggest difference is you're now going to have a field for the card address. So there may be some situations with the ghost cards if maybe you wanted to add an additional address for online verification purposes. So if you just want to have an additional address on file whenever you're making online transactions, you can edit this address information here, and that will be checked by the merchants as well as any other addresses you had on file through the customer ID or through the account. And at the very bottom, you're also going to see your security code button. So this is what I mentioned before. So once we click on the security code, this is going to show us that CVC2 number and the the expiration date. Okay, and that will conclude card maintenance. So before I move on to the next section, I'm going to go ahead and take another quick pause to see if I have any questions. Okay, we look to be in good shape. So now I'm going to, now that we know how to look at order your cards and manage your existing cards. Let's say you have a card holder calling up and saying, "Hey, my card's been declined. I don't know what's going on." So now I want to go to show you where to go to troubleshoot any declines as well as look at any current day-to-day transactions. So in order to do so, we're going to go to Manage. we're going to go to transactions. And from here, we're going to go to real-time transaction history. Now, from here, you can filter down your customer ID if you have multiples. Go ahead and select that one. From here, you can also select, if you had a particular card, maybe, you probably know who's calling you in, so you can either do their last name or first name, try to find their card. Otherwise, you can simply just plug in your start and your end dates, and then it'll pull up anything within those ranges. And speaking of the ranges, the date ranges are limited to 180 days between your start and your end dates. If you try to pull anything larger than that, it will error out. So just a second. All right, and also note that this can essentially only go back up to a 14-month rolling period from the current day. So this will give you a reminder essentially as to how far back this can go. So if you need to pull any data longer than the 14-month period, you will need to go into the report queue to retrieve that information. So without further ado, I do have some sample transactions we're going to take a look at, and I'm going to go over some common troubleshooting strategies if you do run into some declines, and you will. All right, so from here, we're going to, here you can see essentially what this page looks like. Unfortunately, we don't have any successful transactions to really kind of compare and contrast. But from here, you can at least see the authorized amounts. And then if that merchant had settled on that transaction, the posted amount and posted time and date will be populated when they do so. You'll also see the merchant's name, the transaction status. Now, these will vary between authorized, posted, declined, and a few others in between. You're also going to see the cardholder's name, their number, and some other information. So, of course, we see, hey, all these transactions have been declined, but we still don't know why they've been declined. So in order to find that out, all we have to do is simply click on the transaction status here. So we're going to go ahead and click on this decline here. It's going to load up. And from here, we'll see the rest of the information that was input at the point of sale. So over here to the right, the bottom right-hand section is going to have all of your troubleshooting information. So in this case, we can see that the transaction amount limit has been exceeded and that we need to verify the amount and adjust the limit. So if we want to take a look at that, so here we can see the authorized amount. So this is what the merchant was attempting to ring it up for, your cardholder, was for $1,001. So in this case, we know that, hey, this card was only created, or rather the profile it's on is only going to allow up to so much. So we know $1,001 is going to be over the limit. So from there, you can let your cardholder know, hey, the you're trying to make too big of a transaction. You can either split up the transaction in multiple transactions if that might help. Otherwise, that you may need to do a one-time override for this person or switch them to a different profile. You have lots of options to approach this one. All right, so let's take a look at another transaction. So we'll look at this one for $1,000. So in this case, so not every account will have elected to have the option to prompt for an employee number or vehicle number or anything along those lines when they make a fuel purchase. However, this account was set up for that. So I just want to go to show you what it looks like in case your account is set up like that. So if you see in this case, the cardholder ID number is invalid, and to verify the cardholder ID, this is letting you know, hey, the employee had put in the wrong employee number at that point of sale. So in order to verify that information, you would simply go over here to the left where you're going to see the prompted ID. So this is going to be the exact number that they'd input at the point of sale when they made this purchase. So in this case, we can see they put in 001, 002, and that number was incorrect. So then you can let your person know, hey, I see what you put in. You put in the wrong thing. You need to, put in this number. So you can either go to card maintenance, or you can look at your employee pin pool if you had one set up like that. And I'll show you how to cover that as well a little bit later. All right, so then we're going to go ahead and click back. We're going to take a look at another transaction. Now we're going to look at this one for $300. All right, so in this case, we're going to see in the bottom right-hand corner, you will see MCC is not available for use and that you need to verify the usage limits and adjust the card profile. So in order to double check what merchant category code or MCC that this particular transaction fell under, you'll want to go to the top of this page here. And then here you can see that merchant category code number is going to be 3273. So essentially this is what that location was deemed as by MasterCard when they were getting set up. So, as your accounts were being set up, depending on how your accounts were, if they were restrictive or less restrictive, this is really going to vary based on the account. But if you run into this, you have a few ways of approaching this. So you can either let your cardholder say, no, you're not allowed to make that transaction. You could also say, oh, if they do need to make that transaction, you can do a one-time override to override this merchant category code restriction. And then from there, they can make that transaction in a one-off. And then if you decide this needs to be a permanent adjustment to your purchasing profile that this cardholder is on, you can reach out to Comdata, reach out to your Comdata rep rather, let them know which purchasing profile needs to be adjusted and which MCC needs to be opened up. And then from there, we can get that opened up for you, and then they won't run into that issue again. All right. So that will about cover the sample transaction we're going to go over. Now, of course, we've only gone over a very small handful of transactions, and you are going to run into a slew of them for lots of different types of transaction reasons and declines. But if you ever have any questions over anything that whenever you run into this, just simply reach out to your Comdata rep, and we'll be more than happy to assist you. And I probably shouldn't have said you're going to run into a slew of them. That might might set the pace a little bit incorrectly. What I'm saying is you're going to run into different transactions. It is inevitable you're going to run into a handful, and you will probably run into some that you're not familiar with. So again, just reach out to your Comdata rep. We'll be more than happy to help. All right. So before I move on to the next section, I want to go ahead and take another quick pause to see if anybody has any questions for me. Okay, we seem to be in good shape. So now I'm going to go over some two additional features real quick, and these are going to be a little bit more specific based on how your accounts are set up. So I'm only going to touch on them briefly. And if you are a Ghost Card holder, strictly a Ghost Card user, feel free to tune me out for the next 5-ish minutes or so for these next two features. So the first thing I want to go over is, let's say if your account was set up in a way that you were utilizing some sort of quote unquote pin pool, whether that be an employee number pin pool or a vehicle number pin pool for prompting at fuel locations. So if you had any of that set up, I want to go to show you, or excuse me, I'm going to show you where to go to manage those. So in order to do so, we're going to go to Manage. We're going to go to Fleet Assets. And from here, depending on the type of profile, or excuse me, the type of pin pool you had set up, you would either see cardholder ID maintenance, which would be for employee numbers, or vehicle ID maintenance for unit/vehicle numbers. Once you click on one of these, here you will see the next screen, kind of similar to what we've been seeing already, your account code, customer ID, additional sorting options. If you leave it blank, hit search, you'll pull up the full list. You're also going to have some options to the left to go straight to the adding a new screen, or to view your current list or make any adjustments or deletions. Now, unfortunately, this is about as far as I can take you in the training environment. So once you get to this part, if you're having additional issues, please reach out to your Comdata rep, especially depending on how these prompting options were set up. They can be very heavily customized. So your Comdata rep is probably going to be the best one to kind of help fill in the gaps on that. All right, so the next feature I'm going to go over is specifically for our employee cardholders, and this is where to go to manage your alerts and notifications. So essentially they're fraud alerts, and even this is pretty new, your cardholders can now receive decline reasons as well. So there should be maybe a little bit less of having to call you guys and say, hey, why is my card being declined? So they should be receiving these messages as well. So in order to do so, we're going to go ahead and click on Manage. We're going to go to Alerts and Notifications Manager. And from here, we'll want to click on the drop-down box, select our account code, click in the customer ID field. Now, it looks like you have to type it in, but once you click in there, there's a drop-down box as well. So we're going to go ahead and select our customer ID. And here we are for are tabs that we'll be able to manage. So to start things off, you're going to have your new action required tab. So this will show you any cardholder who has not answered that text message. So if they had a potentially fraudulent transaction, and our system caught it and it says, hey, we want to make sure this is you before we authorize this. So if for any reason they don't answer it, you can answer this on their behalf in this first tab here. So if you do decide to approve it, you're going to see a little action block over here where you can see either approve or decline. Now, once you approve it on your end, that's not fully authorizing it for that merchant. So essentially, your approval on this end says, yes, we will allow this transaction for this amount to go through. So once you approve it, or your cardholder approves their transaction on their end, they will need to swipe that transaction one more time for it to finalize. All right, and the next tab we're going to have will be the resolved tab. So this will show you anybody who has answered their text messages, whether they said, this was approved or declined. It's also going to show you any administrators' actions as well. So if you're approving or declining or somebody else is, you can see them down here as well. And then your third tab, you're going to have your enrollments. So this will show you everybody who's currently enrolled in the program or perhaps pending enrollment over here in the status field. And then from there, you'll sometimes have an action button over here. So like for this case, they're still pending. If you need to resend that email and text message to them, you can click on this button and it's going to re-trigger that response for them. All right, and the final tab here this is pretty new for us, is the notifications tab. So this is another way to troubleshoot decline. So perhaps instead of using real-time transaction history, you may want to get in the habit of just coming into alerts and notifications to kind of review all of the transactions that your cardholders may be getting. So this should show up the same information for those transactions down here as well. So, if you have a cardholder, again, they're not getting that text message, you can look at it from here and then let them know what's going on and what to do from there. Okay, so that will conclude the alerts notifications feature. So before I move on to the next section, I want to go ahead and take another quick pause and see if I have any questions. Okay, we seem to be in good shape, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next section. So we're going to start off on the home page, and now we are done with the Manage tab. So that was essentially the bulk of today's training. The rest of this should go a little bit smoother from here. So thank you for your patience so far. All right, so the next thing, now that we know how to manage our cards, let's say a few days have passed, we've had some transactions, maybe the end of the month is rolling around, and we're ready to start pulling reports. So now we're going to go to the Reporting tab, and then we're going to go down to Report Queue. Now, make sure your pop-up blockers are disabled or else this won't pull up in a new window. So once I click on the Report Queue, again, here we are with our new window. Welcome to Report Queue. We're also going to want to click on this top left-hand button here that says Quick Reports. And from here, you'll be able to see all of the canned reports that you'll have access to based on your account level, or excuse me, mostly based on the products that you have. So I'm going to kind of go over some of the important blocks here. My Access does have multiple products available, so yours may not be as overwhelming as this. But again, we're going to cover some of the bases here. So I'm going to go over some of the blocks here, which reports may or may not be relevant to you, and then we'll dive a little bit deeper and take a look at some of those reports and kind of give you some general restrictions, limitations that will affect all the reports. All right, so to start things off, you're going to have your administration tab here. So these are going to have lots of account-wide reports. Probably one of the nicest reports here that we'll have available is the Corporate Payments Account Spend Report. So this is a really nice high-level overview of your month-to-month performance. So this gives you great graphical summaries, charts and graphs, all that good stuff, including the month-to-month spending, spend per transaction, and your top vendors. So this one is only available in PDF, but this is a great report. If you're having some sort of monthly meeting and you really want to see, provide a nice, presentable, meeting-worthy report, this is a good go-to report for that. All right, a little bit further down here, you're going to have your cardholder tab. So this is going to be a little bit more catered towards your card spending as a whole, or excuse me, really just based on the card holders. So you'll have various options to sort them down by just particular cards, or maybe like groups of cards and stuff like that. A little bit further down, you're going to have your purchasing, travel, and entertainment. So these are going to be more catered towards airline activity, car rentals, and hotel activities. A little bit further up, you're also going to have the last section here, the fleet transactions. So these are going to be more catered towards your fueling transactions. So you're going to have, an F-Save report, fuel and maintenance MCC report, MPG report if your employees are entering the correct mileage every time they're filling up, and then lots of other good stuff here. So to start things off, we're going to go back down to the card holder, and I'm going to go ahead and show you probably the most popular report that we have on the report queue, and that will be the transaction listing. So this is the tried and true way of retrieving all of your transactions within a period. So we're also going to kind of go over certain restrictions that all the reports will follow. So from here, you can see you would need to enter your account code, customer ID, your display, and this kind of middle sorting information is going to vary based on the report that you're pulling. However, you will always be able to select your start and your end dates. So keep in mind, so for the start and end dates, you will want to keep these limited to 180 days, similar to the real-time transaction history. If you try to pull anything larger than that, the report will error out. And then the difference though is this can go back all the way to the life of the account. So if you've been a happy customer with us for 10 years, you can go all the way back to day one and then look at your very first transactions if you need. Now on the flip side of things, while this can go all the way back to the beginning, there is a 2-day delay between when a transaction has been posted by the merchant and when it's going to be populated in the system. So if you need to pull any month-end reports, you will need to wait until about the 3rd of the following month before everything's populated here in the system. All right, and then you'll also have some additional sorting options, again, based on the reports. And then depending on the report, they can be available in either PDF and or Excel. So if it's available in PDF, you'll see this View Report button. If it's available in Excel, then you can click on the Excel download. All right, and then once you're done, you can click on Back, and then when you're fully done with the report queue, you can click on the Close Report queue at the top. Now, quick, I guess just kind of words of advice here. Really, my best recommendation is once you've had a few transactions, please take the time to just dive in here to the report queue. Just start pulling all the reports that look like they might be relevant to you. You may be surprised about what some of the reports are going to provide for you. And it's really the kind of the best way to get familiar with the system and how our reports read out. So, and of course, once you've been reading some reports, if you have questions, always feel free to reach out to your Comdata rep. We'll be more than happy to assist. All right, and that will conclude the report queue. So before I move on to the next section, I'm going to go ahead and take a quick pause to see if anybody has any questions for me. All right, let's go ahead and move on then. I don't see any other questions. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of report queue. Now I'm going to show you where to go to retrieve your consolidated invoice. So in order to do so, we're going to click on the Payment Center. We're going to go to My Invoices. And from here, we're going to look for the information we can plug in here. I highly recommend leaving this open to any report type. You may have some miscellaneous reports that'll make their way in here. Probably the best example is, let's say if your account is set up to be funded by Comdata initiated ACH, where essentially we're going in and drafting your account. Whenever we do so, we would provide you with an ACH daily recap. Excuse me, and then that recap is going to show up here in these reports, or rather here in the invoice section. And then from here, you can select your account code. You're going to have your start and your end dates. So these are a little bit different than what we're used to. These are limited to 45-day windows, and these can only go back up to 14 months of the current day. So that's similar to real time, but again, 45-day windows for these. Now, unfortunately, I can't click on the Get Reports to view what the invoices, what they look like on the website, but they should be available in either a web browser or PDF version for the consolidated invoice. Now, I do have a sample of a consolidated invoice that I am going to pull up, and we're going to go over what you'll be looking at once you've generated that invoice. So here we are, again, sample of the consolidated invoice. So again, this is the final invoice that you'll need to consult to know how much you need to pay. Um, Over here to the right, you're going to see your account code, the invoice date that this was created, and then the two big ones, the due date and the total due. So the total due here is the full amount to be expected to be paid in full by said due date. Quick note as well, if you're pre-funded, essentially this is all more of an FYI, but if you have a line of credit, this is definitely going to be your number one concern for this. If you have if you are being funded by Comdata initiated ACH, this would be the day that the account will be drafted. Essentially, this day as it transitions to midnight to the next day. So generally, just make sure if you have sufficient funds by the due date, you should be in good shape. All right, a little bit further down, you'll see your product breakdowns here based on if you have multiple customer IDs. If you had any expedited cards, that fee schedule would also be broken up down here. And of course, worst case scenario, if you had any late fees, they would also show up here. A little bit further down, here you will see your previous balance, your new activity. You can see the current credit limit, the available limit at the time that this invoice was generated. You'll also see a reminder for your total due. A little bit further down, we're going to kind of go over how these transactions are broken down. So here you'll see the first card number and the cardholder name on file. From there, you'll be able to see all the transactions that they've had within this cycle cutoff. So here you'd be able to see, where they were at, how much they spent, et cetera, et cetera. Then you can scroll on down and you'll see the next card, all of its information, so on and so forth. So we'll scroll on down here. Depending on your account, you may see one customer ID divider. This is just an extra summary page. A little bit further down, you'll see another account divider. And then at the very last page, you would see your credit payment miscellaneous billing information. So if you had any of those extra kind of miscellaneous stuff at the top, whether it was expedited fee or late fee, that would also show up down here. Or if there were any reason that Comdata directly applied a credit to your account, that would also show up down here as well. All right, so of course it's going to be great to check your invoice from top to bottom, but if you have any questions over anything you see, again, always reach out to your Comdata rep. I'm more than happy to help out. All right, so that will conclude the payment center. So before I move on to the next and last section, I want to go ahead and take a quick pause to see if anybody has any questions. Okay, we look to be in good shape. So I'm going to go ahead and go over the last section. So next thing I want to show you is our self-help center. So this is where we house all of our quick documents and additional training opportunities for you. So in order to do so, we're going to go to the Resource Center. Once I click on this, this is going to take us to a new a new tab on your browser. So again, make sure that pop-up blocker is disabled. And from here, we can see, here we are at the Resource Center. So you're first greeted with a search bar. So I will go ahead and say it's not quite as strong as Google. That's basically reading your mind as you're typing out your question. It is a little bit more reliant on the specific keywords that you're inputting. So if you're fairly clear and concise with what you're looking for, this should be able to get you the results. Otherwise, we have two better ways of kind of narrowing down your information. So for everything regarding physical cards and ghost cards, the two tabs that will be relevant to you will be found at the top here, and they would be under MasterCard Fleet and MasterCard Travel and Purchasing. So essentially, they were all just kind of too much to have them all together, so they had to split them up. So the first thing we're going to look at is the MasterCard Fleet. So from here, you'll see our top questions and answers, a lot of our quick documents available. So these will have a lot of various features that we've gone over in a PDF version. So say, for example, if we're looking at, okay, classic card maintenance, how do we edit a MasterCard? I quite forgot how to do that. So once you click on that, this is going to show you where to go, step-by-step instructions. We went to cards, maintenance, etc., where to go to manage that. So you'll have nice pictures, step-by-step instructions for that. And you can download them, of course. So maybe you brought in a new person, and you want to get them kind of like a little care package of self-help information. You can give them that, and they can look over it and learn how to use the website. All right, a little bit further down as well, you will also see additional user guides, reporting guides, and then training opportunities. All right, now let's take a quick look at the other tab. So this was the MasterCard Fleet. Now we're going to look at MasterCard Travel and Purchasing. So as you can see here, we have a little bit different questions and answers, different quick documents, user guides, and reporting guides as well. All right. Now, one last thing as well. Comdata has really grown over the years based off customer feedback. So, if there are any features specific to the website that you feel strongly about, whether, oh, this feature's been the next best thing since sliced bread, or this is the worst invention humankind's ever seen, please remove it from the website immediately. So, again, if you run into anything like that, please feel free to leave that feedback at the top right hand corner. Let our website team know. And then, based off consistent feedback, they'll know what needs to be adjusted. Okay, so once you're done here, you can simply close out of the tab at the top on your browser, and then you're back to the home page. And having said that, not only will that conclude the Resource Center, but that will conclude today's training as a whole. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor to any additional questions before we part ways for the day. Okay, it does not seem like we have. Oh, here we go. So, okay, that's a great question. So, Ala has asked, how do you pay invoices online? So, I'm assuming you have probably elected to have electronic bill pay as an option. So, in order to do so, we will go over to the Payment Center, and then you will see this button called the Pay on Account. Now, unfortunately, our access will not let us go much further than this, but once you click on that, this will take you to an additional, I believe, new tab, and this is going to give you the breakdown of where to go to input all of your bank information, and then retrieve your invoices and all that stuff, or rather to pay your invoice. Another quick note about this feature as a whole, I do want to mention this. So you may run into issues if you try to pay your invoice the very day it's been generated. So with this pay on account, the way it works, there is a bit of a delay between when the invoice generates and when it's going to be populated in here. So just be sure to remember, okay, hey, invoice came out at the beginning of the month, wait till the second. And then there can be a bit of a delay between when you pay that uh, feature here on the pay on account versus, excuse me. So yeah, there's a bit of a delay on that as well. So you want to make sure you're paying at least 24 to 48 hours before the due date as well. So just bear all that in mind. All right, but thank you very much for bringing that up. That's a great question. All right, so take another quick pause to see if I have any additional questions. Okay, we seem to be in good shape. So I would like to thank everybody again for your time and your patience in today's training. Thank you for choosing Comdata, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.